California Governor Gavin Newsom are deepening as protests against ICE spread nationwide in U.S. The Federal Appeals Court has temporarily halted a ruling that would have returned control of the California National Guard to Newsom, allowing Trump to keep the troops under federal command, at least for now. The move follows a decision by Judge Charles Breyer, who ruled that Trump's deployment of troops to Los Angeles was unlawful and inflaming tensions. Trump has sent 4,000 National Guardsmen and 700 Marines into the city to protect federal buildings and ICE operations. On the other hand, the rift between Democrats and Republicans deepened. Video released by the office of U.S. Senator Alex Padilla shows the California Democrat being forcibly removed from a room by law enforcement officers at a federal building in Los Angeles after he tried to ask a question to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem about immigration raids that have sparked protests. Let's listen in.
On the ground. On the ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go, it's right behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
This is what the U.S. Senator stated later.
Sir, this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question? If this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country.
Now we have guests joining us, Scott Faulkner. He's a head Eagle Enterprises, a security firm based in Washington, joining us live from Washington, U.S. Thank you, for joining us, Faulkner, for joining us today, and welcome to NewsX World. From a security operations perspective, is tripling ICE's daily arrest quota to 3,000 logistically viable without compromising procedural integrity or public safety?
Well, the key is that every one of the anywhere from 12 to 20 million illegal aliens that have come into the country during the Biden administration compromised all sorts of processes and policies and our national security, and the courts were completely silent during that period. So them trying to step in and doing things now is pretty disingenuous. But there's no, again, to meet some of the goals that the Homeland Security Department is trying to achieve in terms of getting rid of the illegals in our country, starting with the worst of the worst and then moving on to the broader population. They have to keep up that kind of pace. And it's not going, I mean, we have suffered as a country over the last 4 years. We need to end that suffering by removing as many people as fast as possible.
And according to what risks do large-scale public-facing raids pose to officer safety, especially in urban environments like LA or New York, where resistance is quite high?
Well, that's always going to be an issue. I mean, again, we're dealing with these sanctuary communities and sanctuary states that are all unconstitutional. I mean, the U.S. Constitution and the Supreme Court and other courts consistently for over 200 years have said that any form of sanctuary or any other form of ignoring or reversing federal law is basically nullification, which is illegal. So we need to be able to assert federal authority because that's the only way we're going to keep our country safe. In terms of the actual safety issues, clearly it is safer if in a cooperating city and a cooperating state to remove these individuals when they're still in prison as opposed to getting back on the street. And so there's a lot of issues here. I think that part of it is also that we're dealing with a highly organized insurrection. I mean, we've already arrested the person who was handing out materials at the Los Angeles riots that you don't just simply go down the street and buy. So this stuff was pre-positioned, pre-ordered, the whole supply chain to create insurrection has been there for possibly weeks, if not months. They were just waiting for the right event to trigger. So yes,
And
ICE agents and others are definitely in harm's way. We're hoping that they will do what they need to do to not be in harm's way.
And what is your take on the deployment of the Marines to support ICE raids? Where do you draw the line between necessary force and overreach?
The Marines are basically being used along with the federalizing of the National Guard to actually protect federal assets. If you look at the Marines that have already been deployed in Los Angeles, they're basically protecting federal office buildings and other federal facilities. So it's staying within that. They're not being, they are not being used in a law enforcement environment. They're being used in a protective circle around federal assets, and that's totally legitimate. Again, you go back to the 1807 Insurrection Act in America, which has been upheld numerous times in the court, which says that a president, in terms of insurrection, may federalize National Guard units in the state level and bring in federal military forces, and that we're clearly dealing with an insurrection.
And now we're seeing this rise of ICE. Could this create long-term complications for military readiness or public trust in uniformed institutions?
Right now, the surveys are still showing consistently over 60% of Americans are in favor of what the president is doing. He ran on this, he got elected on this, he's now implementing his promises, and the American public, again, when you listen to most of the American media, which is very left-wing, very anti-Trump, very pro-illegal immigration, you think that it's quite the opposite. But when you look at the real polling, which even is done by some of these media organizations, you have overwhelming support from the American public that they're tired of having public services stretched by illegals. They're tired of having all this new illegal activity, deaths, drug dealing, smash and grab, stealing, and all the rest happening by these illegals. People want it to end, and Trump is ending it.
Thank you very much, Scott Faulkner, for joining us today.